Welcome to Cultivating Conversations, a series of global, action-oriented dialogues on sustainability, with a particular focus on agriculture, food, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Kerry McNamara, and I'm the CEO of OCP North America, a subsidiary of the OCP Group. As many of you know, the OCP Group is a Moroccan-based global company serving farmers on 5 continents with plant nutrients that help them feed a growing population sustainably. We at OCP North America are hosting these dialogues on behalf of the OCP Group because innovation, collaboration, and dialogue about sustainable solutions are at the core of our work on behalf of farmers all around the world. For obvious reasons, this first dialogue is virtual, but we look forward to welcoming you to future sessions in our New York offices and elsewhere. Our commitment to sustainable solutions is exemplified by our deep engagement in African agriculture, which we see not as a challenge, but as a central part of the solution to feeding the planet sustainably. In recent years, we've been at the forefront of providing African farmers with the right nutrients for their specific crops and soils so they can raise their yields sustainably and affordably. This emphasis on innovation for sustainability in Africa and elsewhere is why the company created a few years ago a new university in Morocco, the Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, with a Pan-African ambition to be a platform for world-class research on and solutions for the challenges and opportunities facing Africa's sustainable development. The university is already conducting, with partners across Africa and around the world, research and training on a range of issues key to the future of African agriculture, from soil science and water management to digital innovations to empower farmers with the information and access they need to succeed. Yet even as we dream of a future of African prosperity with agriculture as one of its drivers, these difficult global times we live in remind us that food is a precious resource and global food supply chains can be disrupted. Furthermore, agriculture and food systems are still fragile in many places in Africa. So we're honored to focus this first session of our Cultivating Conversation series on the FAO's new Building Food Systems Hand in Hand initiative, which works to help farmers in those countries that still need to make a lot of progress on Sustainable Development Goal number 2, Zero Hunger. We are thrilled and grateful to have such a distinguished group of speakers and such a diverse and experienced group of participants in this dialogue.
So Hand in Hand is an approach that was brought by the new Director General, which is trying to work together with countries. It has 5 principles in the way we operate in this initiative. So the first principle is looking at targeting the poorest, and that's why our major goal is to achieve SDG 2 and SDG 1. As you know, FAO is about SDG 2, but SDG 2 is interlinked with SDG 1, and of course, there are SDGs, and I will explain how. So target the poorest is the first priority that we have, because we want to eliminate hunger and we want to eliminate extreme poverty from the world. The second principle is matchmaking. What Hand in Hand is trying to do is to bring together parties, so to facilitate an exercise of coordination of matchmaking, so that donors, not donors, technical assistants, players in the country can work together. By how? By bringing information to them that will facilitate that process. The third principle is that we have to be in our mandate. We have a mandate, and our mandate is to achieve SDG 2. And of course, we work with other SDGs, but our goal is to achieve zero hunger and eliminate all forms of malnutrition. And that's why the beauty of Hand in Hand is that we won't work alone. We work together. We work with all our partners. All our different stakeholders work with us and the private sector and the civil society to achieve what we are trying to do. The fourth principle is provide a framework, and I will elaborate on that. The framework has 5 other principles, and then partnerships. So we are working in partnerships with the country. This is a bottom-up approach. It's not a top-bottom approach. It's basically by the demand of the countries. Even to participate in Hand, the country has to ask us that they want to be part of this initiative. So how we do this framework? Basically, we work with a territorial approach, and this is looking at different areas of the country and how we can differentiate them. And just for our simplicity, we differentiate them in two types. Areas that have low potential in any agro-food activity, which could be agriculture, could be livestock, could be forestry, could be aquaculture, fisheries, any activity that is a part of FAO mandate. So in those areas, we say we have to do something different. Agriculture or aquaculture or fisheries is not the option. But in the areas where we see potential, and when we mean by potential, we mean that if we are able to put the producer in what they can produce with their own agroecological zones and their own characteristics of the land, he will be moved out of poverty. So that frontier that he can approach will put him out of poverty. And putting out of poverty a farmer means $7 a day. Extreme poverty is $1.85, as you know. But we want them to be sustainable out of poverty. So it has to be a frontier that will allow them to move out of poverty if we put them there. But today, for certain reasons that we don't know, he's not in that frontier, and we want to change that.
I want to know specifically on food security regarding to soil fertility. What are you going to do to help women? Because, you know, men are working on the field, most of them to feed their family, but women also, when it comes for women empowerment, women living in rural area are working also. So what are you doing specific? What are you planning to do specifically for women in this particular area?
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Burkina Faso was our first country, so it's a pleasure to work in Burkina. And of course, as you said, there is the conflict zone, which in our case will be the red zones. And the goal that we're trying to do there is to increase resilience. And that's why we are linking the red zones with the green zones by increasing efficiency of production and obtaining bigger incomes to farmers in the green zones. Now, the gender issue that you referred, there are two very important cross-sectional issues that we take into account in hand. One is child labor, that is not supposed to happen. And the second one is looking at gender across and trying to find how we can make inclusive and empower women in the activities we do. And in many of the agricultural activities, females are involved, especially in what is the processing and the packaging. The women play a significant role. And the important thing, and where we can empower them, and that's the practice that we're trying to implement, is by reducing the wage gap. Normally, males obtain more earnings than females, despite they have the same characteristics. And our job is to try to put the incentives aligned in the activities we implement so that they have the same share of income. For example, one of the issues that we have identified is that normally the land is under the name of the male. And when there is contract farming arrangements, the male is the one who receives the returns, despite the female is also working in the plot. We are trying to design new ways in which those contract farming arrangements incorporate the share of the land that corresponds to the female, so that the payments are distributed between male and female. So there are many innovations that we can bring to try to empower women more, but empower them for reality, not just voice, but to have the income to empower even more her voice.
I think we see too often that those who are left behind are young people, are the youth of the world. And so that is why I'm so excited to be able to introduce our next guest, our next speaker, Jennifer Sarangelo, who is president and CEO of the National 4-H Council. So Jennifer, so excited to have you on today and to hear about the work 4-H is doing in ag and food security and beyond.
I just want to thank Carrie, you, Kirby, and OCP North America for convening this. And most importantly, I want to thank you for including young people as a part of the conversation and the solution for the future. While the UN and all of its agencies really do recognize the power of young people and the importance, there's still oftentimes young people are left out of the conversations around the solutions. So I'll be their representative today. I'm no longer in the young people category, but I do work with them every day and have had the pleasure of traveling to meet many of them around the world. Our 4-H programs on 4 continents I've had the opportunity to see and meet. And what always strikes me is how much the same we are and how much our young people have the same goals around the world. And as you look at the global population and think about the UN's definition of young people from 15 to 24, there are 1.2 billion young people and youth in the world. 1 in every 6 people worldwide is a young person. And they're projected to grow as a percent of the population at 7%. So by 2050 should be really higher than even expected in the SDGs and the target date. So the fact that we have, you hear it sometimes talked about as the youth bulge, but there are so many young people who are ready and willing to be a part of the solution when we look at a sustainable food security system for our globe, that it's an opportunity for us to engage them. And if we don't, then it is certainly a chance to, it will be a miss for us to not have the benefit of their contributions to the solutions for the future. Today, as we consider young people a part of the solution for food security and reaching our sustainable development goals, that we should consider them as champions of sustainability. They already are. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. If you haven't thought about young people and what they are contributing to the global conversation today around responding to COVID-19 here in the US and around the world, responding to racial injustice around the world and global climate change. If you haven't seen the power of young people, then you're not paying attention. They are truly a powerful force. And those of us as adults that get to work with them are excited about engaging them in the future.
I think what I'd love to hear from you is, how do you think we as the global community can best support the Voices for Youth so we can implement new emerging strategies in agriculture, bring in technology, raise the profile of working in agriculture? I know this is something 4-H has done in an amazing way in so many parts of the world, but how as the global community do we best support the Voices for Youth in some of these dialogues?
Paul, thank you so much for this question. And I would share that what I've learned in my 20 plus years in positive youth development and what I've learned from my partners around the world is it really matters that young people can see themselves successful in agriculture. That means they need to see either direct mentors. So any of us that have an ability to influence in that one-on-one or group way is really important. But today, with the digital platforms that we have, there are so many more ways that we can show young people that there is a positive future in agriculture. It's not punishment. It is exciting. It is filled with science and technology, and there is opportunity. But they need to see people that look like them and maybe come from a background like them. So if you go to, like for instance, in the United States, we have really worked on adding more video in the last 2 years of our alumni, especially Black alumni and alumni from around the world, to tell the story of agriculture and how they're involved and the exciting things that they get to do. So I think even if you don't have a chance to do one-on-one mentoring or providing opportunities, whether it's internships or fellowships, then tell your story. If you tell your story in a video, in a blog, tell the story. And that it's amazing how much that influences young people, especially in a digital environment.
Jennifer, thanks so much again for your time and your remarks. We mentioned that 4-H is active not just here in the US, but globally as well. And one of those countries where it is quite active is in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is also a source of or location of major investment and activity for OCP. And it also makes me think of our next speaker, Mr. Nega Wubena, who, as I mentioned, is advisor to the VP of Program Innovation and Delivery at AGRA. Nega is also country manager for Ethiopia, and before AGRA was at the FAO, and we are thrilled to have him here today. Nega, obviously, AGRA is a major player at both the grassroots and the policy level, not just in Ethiopia, but across the continent. And so we're eager to hear your thoughts on the Hand in Hand initiative and how AGRA is and can continue to support it.
I would like to talk about what AGRA is doing in terms of promoting inclusive agricultural transformation in Africa. Agriculture played an important role in the African economy, employing over 65% of the population, generating a lot of income in terms of revenues, as well as contributing over 30% to the continent's GDP. So I cannot emphasize more the importance of agriculture in the continent. In terms of contributing sustainable economic growth, as well as providing food security and livelihood for a large percentage of the population. And the other important factor that I would like to note is, as also alluded to by the previous speaker, African population is predominantly young. Over 30% of the population, 70% of the population is under 30 years of age. So this agriculture sector provides a lot of opportunity for employment of young people. So AGRA was established in 2006 by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation support. So it's currently engaged in about 11 countries, plus 3 new countries are coming. So basically we subscribe to the standard inclusive agricultural transformation pathway, where we are trying to transition farmers from a subsistence-based agriculture into a more commercialized agriculture, where farmers actually use productivity enhanced purchased inputs, as well as they have surplus to engage in inclusive markets. So on the left side, you can see the dotted box and the green box on the right. So AGRA's mandate is actually to move the agriculture sector in Africa from the dotted red to the green box. So we have recognized that the traditional approach of transforming agriculture by increasing productivity and production alone is not sustainable. So AGRA is trying to incorporate the elements of food system thinking, particularly nutrition and resilience into the new strategy. So these are some of the food system elements discussion that we're having in AGRA, particularly looking at our comparative advantage to engage in food system, what we can do by ourselves, as well as what we can do in partnership with others. And another big area we're working is resilience from climate change, again, pest and diseases and social economic health crisis and environmental degradation. So we are trying to promote environmentally sustainable as well as inclusive agricultural transformation development.
My question is addressed to Nega Wubena. The CFS, which is a Committee on World Food Security here in Rome, produces widely negotiated policy products to guide countries to help transform their food security and nutrition policies. We are working now to produce voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition for adoption at the CFS 47 plenary in February of 2021. Now, Ethiopia is among the leading African countries on agricultural transformation. What do you see as the main actions required to transform food systems in Ethiopia and across Africa? How do we incentivize African governments to use the CFS voluntary guidelines in their policies in guiding such transformation? And last, how can AGRA and the private sector with other partners support the FAO, CFS, and African governments in these efforts, hand in hand, of course?
Yes, AGRA has been really paying attention to these food systems. And as you probably know, the AGRA president has been nominated by the UN Secretary General to lead the Food System Summit in 2029. So this is big on our agenda. But the transition to food system requires a lot of shifts in the system by governments, consumers, private sector, as well as farmers. And part of the transformation in governments is actually creating awareness, particularly on the notion that the current system that we have is not sustainable. It's destroying our natural resource environment and our ability to produce more food to sustain the population in the future. So there has to be a lot of awareness creation among governments, but I think once that level of awareness is created, there will be willingness. The other area is, as part of our work, we have noticed due to poor civil service pay system, the government's capacity has deteriorated. So this is an area of capacity building where we can help governments actually design good policies and strategies that incorporate the food system thinking.
Thank you, Nega, and yeah, certainly an important perspective. And I think this really is the perfect time to be turning to Ruramiso Mashumba, who, as I mentioned earlier, is director of Mnandi Africa and is also a farmer in eastern Zimbabwe, where she grows snap peas, maize, whole brown rice, sorghum, and a number of other crops that we have just discussed and touched on. In addition to those roles, Ruramiso is, as I mentioned, National Youth Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Farmers Union, a member of the Global Farmers Network, and on top of all that, just this year co-founded the Women Who Farm Africa organization to celebrate the voices of women in agriculture. Ruramiso, we've asked you some difficult questions, and we're thrilled to have you here and to hear your perspectives.
So mine, I would like to share with you a story. My story is of a lady called Kuzai. Kuzai is a farmer. Kuzai wakes up at 4 a.m. in the morning. She walks about 5 kilometers to fetch water. You can see a picture of her on the top picture I've sent. She walks 5 kilometers to fetch water. She chops firewood in order for her to make food for her children. After she's done, she cleans the house and she cooks. Then she goes about 6 a.m. to the field. She carries with her a hand hoe, and then she digs the whole day, from sunrise to sunset, digging her land. She uses seed that she has stored from last season in order to plant her maize. She doesn't use any fertilizers. She just uses a little bit of dung she finds in the dog pen, in the cattle pen. When she finishes, she doesn't spray for any insects. She just waits for the rain. Unfortunately, that year, it did not rain, and she did not get much yield. Most of her crop was eaten by this terrible pest called the armyworm. She's devastated. She goes back and she picks the little she has found. When she picks that little, she goes to the market. You can see there sitting with her other lady friends, and then she starts to sell. But unfortunately, that day it's very hot. Very few buses pass by and buy what she has. Some negotiate her for a few cents. She goes home exhausted from a hard, horrible day. She counts that money and she realizes it's not sufficient for her to pay the $5 school fees for her children. So she decides to keep them at home. The little she has is not enough for her to feed her family. So she has to queue for food aid in order to get food to feed her family. Well, this story for some might be new, but for many here, it's the story of many women living in rural Africa. But you might ask, what is the problem? Why do these people continuously, year in, year out, wait for food aid? Why can't they just work? Why can't they use innovation? After all, the FAO and all these distinguished organizations promote innovation. Wow, that is true. But have you ever thought about access for women? It might not be that easy. When we look down on the bottom picture, this is the vision that we visualize for Africa. What if women were able to access certified seed, definitely their yields would move tremendously. They will be able to grow more. They will be able to feed their children. What if women were able to understand what sort of pesticides they should use in order to treat things like armyworm? After all, armyworm is not peculiar to Africa. It's been in other countries as well. But how have they dealt with it? They've dealt with it by using the correct technology. What if those same women were able to grow their crops, and if they grew their crops, then they were able to store their crops in silos? They were able to take their crops to supermarkets with refrigerated vans so that they were able to get a good price. What if they were able to negotiate prices? What would that mean? It will mean that they can even take their children to school. So this picture below, which you see, is the vision that we have for Mnandi Africa: commercialization of agriculture. One of the greatest challenges I found as a farmer is that agriculture is not commercialized enough. Until we start commercializing agriculture, will we be able to see people living like the picture below? The challenge we face is that there's just so much fragmentation in agriculture. You find that knowledge is not reaching the people that need it the most. Very few people actually know how to grow crops commercially. Very few people have access to technology, affordable technology, not the handhold that is promoted, but very few people are able to get land. We're talking about conservation agriculture. Very few people are able to access that sort of equipment that will help them increase their yields. How many people are able to sell their produce in proper supermarkets instead of selling them on the side of the road? Every time we drive around the country, we see people selling their produce. But the question is, how much of it is going to be scorched by the sun? How many of these people are unable to send their children to school? So today I decided to share with you the story of a life of a woman in Africa and the potential that same woman could have. We need to end hunger, because hunger is a serious challenge. Year in, year out, more people are hungry. The statistics are crazy, but this can change. So thank you so much. I just wanted to share with you this very short presentation on the vision that Mnandi Africa has on commercializing agriculture and doing this in a holistic way. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pierre Thiam. I'm a chef, cookbook author, and social entrepreneur. I'm the co-founder of Yolele Foods, an African food company, and of Teranga Restaurant in New York City. Today we are making a fonio and mango salad. Fonio is an ancient grain that's been around for 5,000 years, and that's great for the environment. Today I will tell you about the work Yolele Foods is doing with smallholder farmers in the West African region called the Sahel. Fonio is a gluten-free, low-glycemic, and high in amino acids ancient grain that's grown by small family farmers in West Africa. It has a delicate texture and features in many iconic African dishes. It can be a wonderful grain alternative in any of your favorite recipes. The challenge with fonio is the processing. It has tiny seeds, each covered in an inedible husk, so it's really hard to turn the crop into food. It takes about 1 hour of manual labor to barely process 1 kilo of fonio. But farmers keep on growing fonio generation after generation. Why? Because it's reliable even in the face of drought. West African farmers know that no matter what happens with the weather in any given year, even when other crops fail, the fonio harvest will come in, and it will come in early. Because fonio matures more quickly than other crops, fonio prevents starvation. It's ready to eat when the last year's harvest has been depleted. As a chef, I see an ingredient like fonio and I see opportunity. Opportunity to share my heritage with a global audience, and opportunity to help farmers like my grandparents earn a living from the sustainable small-scale agricultural practices that supports 80% of the sub-Saharan African people. Fonio is mainly considered a women's crop because its principal function on a farm is to provide sustenance for the family. These are some of the hardest working women in the world. but they are severely opportunity deprived. Turning fonio into a commercial crop provides a chance for these women to earn good money, which they can put to good use in their communities. I'm so in love with this African underutilized product that we need to focus on growing. I can't wait to return to Senegal. Last time I was there was in November, but I'm planning to return as soon as this pandemic allows us to travel again and go and work on just working and strengthening this supply chain of products like fonio that are so good for the environment and great for us and absolutely needed for the farmers, for our security, food security, definitely in the Sahel region of Africa, West Africa, and for the farmers who deserve to make a decent living with their products.